This is the text-to-speech audio version of The Observer by Philosopher. To read the full article, including analysis of trends we're observing and other content, or to join the conversation, check us out on Substack at darkphilosopher.substack.com or on Twitter at Observer Trends or anywhere podcasts are broadcast. Article title: The Second U.S. Convention of States. Article subtitle: What is it? When is it? What does it mean? There has been a growing movement building since 2013. A movement that can shape our nation and its sovereign states to our most fundamental core. A movement to modify our Constitution through the debate and ratification of new constitutional amendments. Enshrined within Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, the power to call a convention of states rests within the legislatures of each state, requiring passage by 34 states to convene, and ratification by 38 states to be included within the Constitution as a recognized legal amendments. Chapter title: Overview. The Convention of States is a very important power in our great republic for exercising state power over federal excesses through the imposition of limitations as required or proposed. To oppose a constitutional amendment, one of two processes must occur. Congress must draft and pass the amendment and seek ratification by a majority of the states, or articles of resolution must pass in two-thirds of state legislatures within the Union to call a convention. Therein, a convention can convene to attempt a draft of amendments. Whereas the power exists within the Constitution for states to call a convention, this process has only been performed by the states in one instance, considered the First Convention of States, which occurred after the 1777 drafts to ratify the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, which came into force on March 1, 1781. The United States Constitution later superseded this document on March 4, 1789. Since 1787, Congress has been the significant applicant for amendments, having passed 33 amendments in that time, with ratification and inclusion in the Constitution of 27 of those proposals, with one amendment repealed, the 18th prohibition of alcohol, repealed by the 21st Amendment. The most recent addition is the 27th Amendment of the Constitution, which also took the longest to pass. Originally envisioned in 1789 and later ratified by these states in 1992. Over 200 years. Chapter title: What does it look like? If 34 states pass the resolution in both the House and Senate of those legislatures, the Convention of States will be called to convene. The expected process would involve a designated location for the convention, with delegates nominated by each of the 50 states to attend and debate the intended articles for consideration and proposal. Any articles which pass this convention are then sent to all 50 states for debate, requiring 38 of the 50 states to ratify the proposed amendments to pass into the Constitution. What resolution? The lobby group, called Convention of States Action Cause Action, has drawn and proposed the following, which must pass in content, in its entirety, to qualify as officially recognized. In brief, the resolution is attempting to convene the convention to rein in perceived federal excesses in spending and assumption of power. The main objectives appear to include the following: term limits for Congress, national debt and federal spending, federal expansionism, federal programs, perceived constitutional violations. Chapter title: Critical Considerations. A convention of states colloquially called opening the Constitution by the media, is a very important process, but it is equally extremely sensitive. Though the U.S. has yet to convene a convention via state passage before, many other countries have been involved in these processes. Immediately, we can learn that this process is messy, highly charged, and political, and can result in some extreme political positioning and rhetoric. The stakes are high in these processes, as the literal State of the Union is under consideration. Currently, the CUS Action Group is attempting to alleviate these concerns by specifying that only those agenda items are being considered. This is, of course, a false promise. Once, and if, the official convention is called, then the agenda will be set, and the political personalities and pundits will equally have their chances to intervene or include items of action. The convention does not have the authority to pass laws, only proposals, which each state will have a chance to debate on the merits. On the opposite side, the federal government is not toothless in these actions, having a few very powerful tools, namely, Federal Supremacy Clause, Article VI, Clause 2, provides for federal supremacy, also called the right to preemption, and the Commerce Clause, also known as Tax and Spend Clause, Article 1, Section 8. As per Supreme Court decisions since 1936, Congress is not bound by any spending restraint under the Constitution, and it could even be argued Congress has a duty to support the welfare of its citizens. The 14th Amendment of the Constitution, quote, "No state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of any citizen." Given this, it's unknown if the convention, once in place, plans to merely add amendments to the Constitution, or repeal these sections, or how the Supreme Court and inevitable lawsuits will pan out. Moreover, given that most of the Supreme Court are Federalist Society members 6 out of 9, is not entirely known how they might handle the interesting cases bound to spring forth, though federal protectionism, where justifiable, is expected. Looking across the world, the most recent version of this process with similar cultural roots, as an example, comes from none other than Canada in 1982, when their federal government called a constitutional convention to make amendments to their founding Constitution of 1867. Chapter title: Notable Challenges. The Night of Long Knives Case Review. After decades of debate, Canada's 18-month process to amend its constitution through a joint venture process between federal and provincial powers was, and I quote, "fierce." Sometime into the process, things began to break down, forming what the media termed the Gang of Eight, a united front of 8 provincial delegates in opposition to federal direction. Politics and eyes on elections plagued the process, with some delegates wanting more powers than the Constitution provided, and others demanding social inclusions in their Bill of Rights to be ratified. The events were televised for the nation, which seems to have added to the ferocity, and included a roadshow to help answer questions from citizens. Also, lawsuits were filed with their Supreme Court and provincial courts to stall or change the direction. At one point, a handful of conservative representatives rushed the Speaker's chair with fists drawn, demanding to be heard when the government attempted to push forward. As court cases wound through various jurisdictions, conservatives in chamber tied up government action in endless procedure. At the same time, the Gang of Eight prepared their opposition, a Cower convention to address their provincial concerns, called the Alternative Constitutional Accord. After some nearly disastrous Supreme Court decisions were handed down, the federal government called a one-last-time conference held over 4 days. Final scrambling by delegates of both the federal and provincial sides resulted in multiple side deals until they finally managed an agreement with a majority. This became known as the Night of Long Knives for claimed betrayals by other delegates to the convention. But a deal was reached. Following this, tribal groups and others emerged with the requests of the delegates for agenda items removed during negotiations, with some quick appeasement. This deal was sent off to Britain to be passed before anyone else could interject. Canada was seeking legal autonomy. Notably, there were political assemblies and campaigning during this period, and the events were a heavy spectacle by media and pundits. These situations can get very messy, and this was a fairly peaceful time in Canada. Looking forward from today, there are concerns about what types of proposed amendments could result from an American convention, especially if state delegates start trading favors for votes. But, on the other hand, if a majority of states have legitimate concerns with the Union, it is their task to hold the federal government to account and seek redress. Largely a Republican-controlled movement to this point, many Democrat-controlled legislatures are also considering the proposed convention, meaning this could shape into a bipartisan issue before the resolutions are passed, as backroom handshakes are undoubtedly being made, and will be made over the coming years. Chapter title: Unfolding Situation. As of November 10, 2022, 19 states have officially passed the resolution in both the House and Senate within those states. These states are Arizona, Utah, North Dakota, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Indiana, Florida, Georgia, West Virginia, South Carolina. 6 states have passed the resolution in one chamber only. They are South Dakota, New Mexico, Iowa, Virginia, North Carolina, New Hampshire. Currently, 15 states have the resolution on the docket, or active deliberations. These are Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, Hawaii. Assuming the Convention of States Action Group can secure the remaining 6 legislatures in the active passage, they only need another 9 states to pass the resolution in both houses to submit the convention to Congress. What occurs at that point is anyone's guess. Regardless of the outcome, this seemingly partisan lead movement will eventually need concessions. Read promises to move forward in the final legislatures, and indeed, the convention. If a convention is called, rest assured the entire world will tune in to watch the historic event. The process could take years, probably involving scandals and betrayals, and be an event to watch for anyone interested in politics. One of the great things about America has always been our ability to move forward together. British occupiers invaded us during our fight for independence. We fought a bloody civil war that pitted Americans against Americans over sacred values. The Japanese bombed us in Pearl Harbor. Our towers fell on 9/11s. Streets burned in the Antifa riots. Our Constitution is ever under threat by every challenge and argument imaginable. Still, we moved forward together. Quote, "One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." Quote, "If you can keep it, so let it be." Signed, Dark Philosopher. For more content, including our trends analysis, see our Substack at darkphilosopher.substack.com or join the conversation on Twitter at Observer Trends. Be sure to join the community so you don't miss out on future articles. Thank you for listening, and good luck.